Dark attribute is the biggest attribute in Yu-Gi-Oh! More monsters are this attribute than any other. And today, I thought I would tackle the best and the most generic dark monsters that you can play in domain format. Also, what archetypes fall under the dark domain in domain format. And if you want to know what domain format is or what a rainbow domain is, go check out that video before you watch this one. A warning before I get too deep into this, I'm not gonna get everything, okay? I'm one guy. This is the research I did, and I have no doubt that as this series continues, people will be in the comments giving suggestions about which stuff I missed or what new stuff has come out since the video release that is also included in this. I'm not going to be covering literally every good dark card because a lot of them have to do with chaos. Chaos cards, kind of ignoring them for now. There will be a chaos video later. I think we're going to start with the most powerful monsters in the attribute. Some generic monsters. There's obviously Dark Arm Dragon. Classic. You have 3 dark monsters in your graveyard. You can special summon it, banish 1, destroy a card in the field. Pretty powerful. Gizmek Orochi. Banish a bunch of cards from top of your deck. It comes back. It can pop cards in the field. Pretty generic. Dark Hole Dragon is a new one that is a little conditional. It searches Dark Hole, which is a board wipe, and Dark Hole is better in domain than it is in regular Yu-Gi-Oh! That's noteworthy. Abominable Unchained Soul can pretty easily special itself from hand, is really big, and can pop cards on the field. Speaking of popping cards in the field, this one I don't think a lot of people know about. Sauge de Fleur. I don't actually know how to say this. I'm not French. It pops a monster on your field and a card anywhere else on the field, and then specials itself, and it's pretty big too. Also, if you happen to be playing a plant monster that it can search, you can search that when it's sent to grave. Lord of the Heavenly Prison is a weird one. It's a sort of back row protection and a free special for them. It searches a card. It's interesting. Another weird one is Vision Hero Witch Raider. Witch Raider can summon itself by tributing trap cards, and it blows up all spells and traps on one of your opponent's fields when it's summoned. Pretty powerful and unexpected. It does lock you into hero monsters for the turn, so it's not very generic, but I thought it just being a board wipe was kind of noteworthy. The Wicked Eraser, Avatar, and Dreadroots, all the Wicked gods, they're pretty funny. Eraser, if you can find a way to pop it in hand with something like a Dragonic Diagram, it can destroy all cards in the field. Avatar can, I think, target an opponent to stop them from using spells and traps for the turn, and it's always the biggest monster on the field. Dreadroot halves everything on the field, all the stats. So if you summon Dreadroot, everything gets way weaker. None of these cards are crazy good or anything, but I think that they're pretty noteworthy for how much of like a boss status they have that have effects that kind of make domain duels funny. You have your battle trap kind of monsters. You have Gores, you have Tragodia. Also, Phantasme is in this format, special from hand. Not as reliable. I mean, someone's probably going to be playing a Link monster, right? It's probably going to come up. Exodius is basically a free shuffle back all of the monsters in your graveyard to summon him. So it's a body mixed with recycling. So that's really interesting. You have a lot of floodgatey kind of monsters too. So Destiny Hero Plasma stops all your opponent's monster effects. It can suck up monsters too. Chaos Hunter stops stuff from being banished. End of Anubis locks down the graveyard. Jinzo stops trap cards. Vanity's Fiend stops special summoning, right? So you have all these sort of like one tribute or special summon kind of monsters that lock down the game a bit. Arch Nemesis Protos is in dark. You have to have a wide domain or an archetype with multiple attributes to make use of it, but it is here. Now, something really dangerous, and some people might have thought, why didn't you start with this? This is clearly the most noteworthy thing you can mention, but there are a lot of low-level, dangerous monsters. So we have Cyberstein, which in domain, I don't know how good Cyberstein is. Paying 5k for one monster in a 3-player duel, kind of scary, but it is Cyberstein, and I'm sure there's some, crazy cracked combos you can do with it. More than that, though, Magical Scientist is a thing. That seems kind of scary. I feel like Magical Scientist can do a lot of crazy shenanigans. Level Eater also is here, meaning it can just keep coming back. You got levels to eat. It can do a lot of crazy link combos. Speaking of link combos, Gofu. Yeah, this thing caused a lot of problems when links came out. Danger monsters. The entire Danger archetype is in here. So If you want free bodies, draws, you want to gamble a little bit, danger monsters are available with Dark. Also important to note, before we get into the extra deck monsters, Albaz is a Dark monster. And Albaz means that if anyone ever summons an extra deck monster, you can transfer an Albaz and that monster into a Mirror Jade. And Mirror Jade is very annoying. Anyway, moving to the extra deck, we'll start with fusions. Related to fusions, Verte Anaconda is legal, which means that Dragoon, Phoenix Enforcer, and to a lesser degree, Malicious Bane are all available. They're these big boss fusion monsters that cause a lot of problems. They have some built-in protection and revival. Also, Guardian Chimera is legal. Kind of circumstantial. Not every deck wants to play this card, but fusion-related strategies do really like it. Moving on to Synchros. Dissipator, Chaos Angel, Draco Berserker, Cyber's Quantum Dragon. There's lots more. There's lots more. But those are some kind of big names right then and there. We have Scarlight. The whole Red Dragon Archfiend archetype is Dark. So that's all in here, but Scarlight's kind of a noteworthy one for life points and for board wiping. Yazi is also a pretty good one, level 7, pops a card on 2 sides of the field. For Xyz monsters, I'll quickly mention Ultimate Falcon. Not that you're summoning Ultimate Falcon very often on its own, but if you're using Waking the Dragon, it's kind of funny to just summon an Ultimate Falcon off of that if you're playing Dark. This is really big. You have IP Masquerena, SP Little Knight, Nightmare Unicorn, and Access Code Talker. These are pretty juggernaut extra deck staples that you get access to when you play the Dark Domain. Both the Calamity Locks, the True King, the very fun dragon, but also the Red Dragon Archfiend Calamity. These both are major lockdown cards, and they're both Dark. So there's that. There's also, for Xyz monsters, Dingirsu. We'll talk about Orcust a bit later. And similarly, Striker Dragon and Guard Dragon Elpie are Dark. They're legal. So you can probably be guessing between Red Dragon Archfiend, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and Bestials. We'll talk about all those later. Dragon Link is a thing. So Elpie being a Dark Dragon is pretty big. There's a classic loop between these two, actually, if you give it to your opponent. But there is Beals of the Diabolic Dragons, can be destroyed by battle or card effects, and if you take damage from an attack involving it, it gains attack equal to the damage you took. There is Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, which every time an opponent activates a card or effect, they take 500 damage, which is super annoying. Pairing that with the Masquerade Dragon would be super annoying. As well as, I just realized, Masquerade Dragon, Flare Metal Dragon, and the Black Wing Dragon, the new one. That would not be a fun field to face. There's also the Topologic monsters. If you can get a loop going with Bomber, or Trisbana, or Zeraboros with a Black Garden or something like that, you know, there's got to be like some way to trigger these guys over and over again besides Black Garden. But yeah, the Topologic monsters are pretty fearsome too. Similarly, Garden Rose Maiden is also a Dark monster, so you can search the Black Garden if you really wanted to. Time Thief Redoer is a classic. That guy is super annoying to actually get a hold of because he keeps leaving the field. That's pretty much it for like the big monster payoff plays that are a bit more generic. Onto generic Dark Domain support. We have Armageddon Knight. We have Dark Grepher. Obviously, these cards have been played for, 15 years at this point, more than that. Just very good at sending dark monsters from deck to grave. To deal with battle phase shenanigans, we have Battle Fader, sort of accompanying the Gores and Tragodia mentioned earlier. We also have Spirit Reaper, which can deal with battle phases pretty well. It can't be hit over by battle. You never know, that could be relevant. I think a lot of people will be popping by card effect or removing. It's probably a bit outdated, but you know, it's Spirit Reaper. It's probably worth mentioning. Every attribute has a kaiju or two. This one has Radiant. So, you know, kaiju and opponent's monster, tribute over them to get rid of the threat. You have Cyberjar. Cyberjar is very funny. I'd love to see a Cyberjar get played in Domain. Knight Draco Lich is a pretty annoying card, kind of mixing with those floodgates that we were talking about earlier, the floodgate monsters. We have Allure of Darkness as sort of a generic draw card for dark monsters, very good. The virus cards. Deck Devastation, Eradicator Epidemic, lots of the virus trap cards that can really mess with opponents. The Magician's Souls and Illusion of Chaos package is dark, so having access to those is a pretty big deal. You probably want to find a spellcaster to pair with them to send from deck to grave to special summon the Magician's Souls, and also probably a way to recycle the Magician's Souls back into the deck after you use it, so Illusion of Chaos can search it again later. Tour Guide from the Underworld and Sangan are dark, obviously. Very classic duo for Xyz era decks, the Zexal era. Pretty good normal summon nowadays. There's a lot you can do with that. Assault Synchron and Rocket Tracer are both legal. Now, they're not necessarily related, but they are tuners that are very well known. A Rocket Tracer obviously being special summoned off of a quick launch. You can't play 3 quick launch in this format, obviously, but Rocket Tracer being available means that you can make some pretty crazy Dragon Link plays, and Assault Synchron is very good for extension and synchro plays. We have TG Librarian, so if you want to pop off with some synchro shenanigans, Librarian is here. Summon Sorceress is here as well. Now, she did just get errataed. She's not as strong as she used to be, but she's still pretty good, and you should definitely be considering her too. Beyond the Pendulum, so for Pendulum strategies, you have access to one of the best link monsters for facilitating combos. I would know. Hello, Magispector player here. We have Cherubini, great for foolish barreling monsters from the deck. King of the Feral Imps is in here, so if you get 2 level 4 monsters, you can overlay them and search any reptile. Rhapsody is a card that's kind of interesting. I don't know if this is worth mentioning. Maybe it's a bit dated, but it seems kind of toolboxy good to have a dark monster that can just banish any card from a graveyard. I don't know, it might come up. Barricade Board Blocker is also a useful link monster for recycling field spells, I think continuous spells as well. And lastly, Gigantic Sprite is good for specialing level 2s from the deck. Speaking of archetypes, Kind of Sprite is available. You have Blue, you have Jet, and you have Pixies. The negates are not available, but those 3 on their own are pretty decent extenders, and there are a fair amount of level 2 monsters that you could be pairing with them in the Dark attribute. So we're going to kind of take this by section. We got Destiny Heroes and Evil Heroes. They're mostly dark monsters. For fairies, we have Dark Lords and Despia monsters. All of that kind of can have some cohesion. There's lots of fiend stuff. Unchained, Labyrinth, Yubel, Infernity, Earthbound Servant, Dark World, and DDD. We mentioned earlier that the dangers are in the Dark Domain. So Dark World being available means you can basically play Dark World Danger and, you know, have fun gambiting. For zombie, there's Vendread and Vampire, and just some generic other really good stuff. The strongest zombie monster is Doom King Battledrock. That guy is crazy, and he is a zombie and he's dark. So a lot of good zombie supports in here, like Unizombie as well. For machine, there's Orchist. There is Cyberdark, but Cyberdark sometimes wants to be here with Cyber Dragon, and you don't really have Cyber Dragon in here because Cyber Dragon is mostly light. We were talking earlier about Burning Abyss. Phantom Knights are usually paired with them, known as PK Fire back in the day, but also what pairs with Phantom Knights by lore? Raid Raptor. So Raid Raptor is also dark. We mentioned Ultimate Falcon earlier. Raid Raptor has all that stuff available. And also, what else is Winged Beast and dark but Blackwing? Blackwing can be used a little bit with Raid Raptor. There is some crossover between them. They don't really play the same though. Spellcasters, there's Dark Magician, obviously, classic, but there's also Shadal. And what else is dark that likes to fuse a lot? But Tearlament. Yes, Tear Shadal is mostly legal in Dark Domain automatically. There is the new archetype Ascend. I don't really know much about it, but I thought it was worth mentioning that they're in here. Dark Pyro monsters, kind of interesting. We mentioned Dragon Link being a thing earlier. Specifically, there's Red Dragon Archfiend, Rocket, Bystial, and Red Eyes. Bystial will probably get a shout out in the Chaos video as well because they do banish lights and darks, but most of the Bystial monsters themselves are dark. So that's why I'm mentioning them here. There's also Dynamorphia. I have no idea how this is supposed to work in Domain. The low life points is probably super scary in this format, but hey, Dynamorphia players, more power to you. I would be very interested in seeing how well that can work in this format. Some lesser powered stuff, Gravekeeper and Ghost Trick are available in Dark. Good luck. Ghost Trick players really got, screwed over by Links being introduced. Very annoyed. Gravekeeper, on the other hand, just kind of slow control style. I don't know, maybe you're not putting enough attention on yourself, so you'll be able to get by a bit. And there are Pendulum monsters. Predaplant very, very, very much focuses on the dark attribute in a lot of their fusions and strategy. And Abyss Actors are also dark. There's also not the Zark Dragons, but the magicians that represent each of Zark Dragons, as well as Skullcrobat Joker. Lastly, we'll talk about some wide domains here, and repeating myself, you're not going to see light and dark domain talked about here. That's a whole other video. But dark does have wide domains available for other attributes as well. Vanquish Soul will come up a bunch in these videos. Raisin gives access to fire, Mad Love gives access to earth, and the higher level members give you both. There are also Gen X ally monsters that give wide domain access. Fire is Volcanon, Water is Solid, which is a weird sentence, and Birdman is Wind. And speaking of wind, the Dark Cymorg monsters also give access to it. And the little guy Necrosynchron. Necrosynchron is relevant because of that Sage de Fleur card I mentioned earlier. And also the Dark Cymorg monsters, I don't know, maybe there's some overlap with the Raid Raptors and Blackwings. Skelosaurus is another way to implement Earth and Dark. And fun fact, Black Ray Lancer, if I'm remembering correctly, is the only Xyz monster with a wide attribute domain, and it's water and dark. And of course, if you want to see the rainbow domains, I already made the video about that, so you can go check that video out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for most of the cards that I noticed are worth mentioning for dark domains. Now, I could very easily have missed something pretty big here. There's lots of good cards that you could do combos with in domain, but I think I'm going to leave that up for the community to cook, and maybe I can make a video follow-up about all of the things that people came up with after these videos came out. Don't forget to check the pinned comment on this video. It will have new information or information I missed, so that if you're coming to this video later and you think something's missing, check there. And also, if you know something that I missed, please comment. And also, if you would like to see when I cover Fire next week, then hit the subscribe button. Also hit the like button on this, please. We're definitely trying to get more people to see these so we can get the conversation brewing and get people's minds and the cogs turning. So yeah, I'm gonna try and not film this one last minute next week. I got a lot to get through, but thankfully dark is the biggest attribute, so I had to look through the most stuff for this one. But I think that the next one is not going to be as long. Fire only recently got a lot of support, so we'll see how that goes. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in. Make sure that you like watching you. Make sure you click like and subscribe if you want to see more of this. I would hope so. Anyway, I think that's all I got for this week. So bye, everyone.